into the mystery date. I
Mystery day.
mystery date.
Mhm.
So who wants to go first?
I can go first
Okay.
because I just finished it, and so I
Ah,
wanted to talk about it, and I
okay.
wanted to say I just saw Fargo season 5. Now,
Oh,
I love the Fargo movies, a movie,
right.
and I
Yeah.
loved the first 2 seasons of Fargo were pretty good. Then I feel like they kinda lost something. They got a little too like, they were trying to be too quirky, and
Two
and
Cohen
then
brothers Z.
yeah, and season 4 was just really flat, unfortunately. It just wasn't that I didn't even finish it, as I just didn't really get into it. So, when Fargo season 5 came out, I'm like, I guess I can watch it." And the one reason I did is because John Hamm stars in it. I'll pretty much, if he's
Oh,
in it, I'm like, "Oh," I mean, it might take a look because I love Mad Men.
I worked on Mad Men.
I
I
love
did
that.
graphic design on that show,
So
which was
cool.
so fun because it had to be old
Really fun.
and retro.
So this is also Noah Hawley, is the one who's created this series, and he's gone. He's pretty much the showrunner in all of these, but this one it kind of goes back to the basics. Like it goes back to it's kind of like a spiritual like partner to the movies where it's about a car salesman and his
Oh,
wife, and she's at home, and there's a home invasion. They try to kidnap her. So that's kind of
oh,
like
okay. So they're
what happens. So it's kind of that, but it takes off in this whole other direction. Now, one of the main reasons it's so
oh,
good,
okay.
there's an actress, Juno Temple. Incredible. She looks like a little deer. But the problem is she's so badass. And this is what's blowing everybody away. Like, what's the deal with this woman? They try to kidnap her. She basically almost kills them all, gets away. They finally get her in a van. They take her, they're trying to get her away, and she gets out of the van, she runs away, she gets into like it becomes this thing where they're trying to catch her, but she outsmarts them the whole time. Now, granted, they're the
Right.
dumbest criminals in the world, as they
Right.
were in
As
Fargo.
yeah.
So you're like, what? And then you have John Hamm cast as this sheriff who I don't want to go too much into details because it's better just discover it. But we have John
Right.
Hamm as this sheriff in this small town, and he is super abusive. He's culty. He's like Christian to the point of men get to beat women. That's kind of like his religion. Like he beats his wife. So she used to be married to him. She got
And his
away and she's
and
under a
his
new
wife is
identity.
this woman who is being kidnapped, right?
Ex-wife. So he's
Ex-wife.
trying to get her
Okay.
back. He wants her back.
Uh,
So that's kind of the context of the thing. He wants her back because she
oh,
humiliated him by getting away. So she got away. So that's part, but he's just such a bad guy. But
wow.
totally, Jennifer Jason Leigh steals this movie as being this super rich, um, super entitled, like Succession times 10.
Uh,
So the Juno Temple's character, who's the woman that used to be married to John Hamm, has remarried, and his family's rich, but he's just this super like to almost a fault how nice he is. So she's like found a new life. She has a new daughter. She has a daughter. She has a super nice husband, and this super rich, terrible person mother who's is super cold and does what she has to do. But it becomes a good competitor to John Hamm when they eventually have to kind of meet up, and there's a lot of dealings with them.
right.
It's a great cast. We also have Joe Carey, who's in Stranger Things, who plays John Hamm's doofus son, who's just worthless, and he's a cop, but he's terrible. So he's like, but there's so many great characters, super colorful characters. The movie is kind of, I mean, the show is kind of stolen by what's this actor's name? I gotta remember. Um, he plays like this murder for hire kidnapper, and he's got kind of the even John Hamm like, who's the guy with the
Oh,
Three
I've
Stooges
seen the
haircut?
pictures. Yeah, I've seen the pictures
Yeah.
of this character.
He was so funny. Wait, I gotta
He
edit that
kind
out.
of kind of reminds me of the No Country for Old Men hairstyle kind of
Yes.
vibe, right? Like doesn't
Yes.
really care how he looks, just sort of cut the hair to
Exactly.
get it out of your eyes.
Okay, so that he's played by Sam Spruill, and
Okay.
he's just completely out there. Like doesn't he's not part of this world, and they have this weird sequence where it looks like he's from another time and he's a
Uh-huh.
thousand years old or something. It's just this weird surreal thing.
Yeah.
He's a great character because he has this weird um kind of honor, like, you know,
Right.
if the flesh is taken, the flesh must be given, that kind of shit,
Right.
so but it has this almost comedic, over the top, but then also that quirkiness that really worked in Fargo that wasn't stopped
Yeah.
working in the series, but now it's sort of back. Like they kind of got it back. So I really highly recommend the new season of Fargo if you want some really fun, unexpected stuff and really strong female characters. A lot to say about abusive relationships and, women being, manipulated and beaten and what should be done about that. And how they're, a lot of times the perpetrators are protected because they're sometimes powerful men and the
Right.
women are helpless and you can't do anything.
Leaders
So
of the
a
community.
lot going on. Yeah, a lot going on below the surface.
Well,
Really
here's
good.
a question about it. It sounds really, really great, but I
Probably
have
may sound
never
confusing.
watched the Fargo TV series. So, is it if I wanted to watch this, would I need to watch the other seasons, the previous
No, it's an
seasons?
anthology, so
So
they're
it stands.
standalone.
Each season
Yeah,
stands on its
yeah,
own. Okay, so you
yeah.
could watch this one, and if I like it,
Watch any
maybe
of
I go
them.
back and watch the first 2 seasons or something out of order.
I would watch the season with Jesse Plemons next if you like this. It's a little bit more serious, but it's got that same. It's also got Kieran Culkin in it.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful cinematography. It has that same. Everything's cold. It's like
Right.
winter everywhere and everything. So it's really good.
It sounds good, and I keep
What
hearing
do you
good things
got?
about it. Well, I watched a show that you recommended that I should watch
So we both
because,
dated the same movie. Okay.
well, it's a series that's a little old. It happened a while ago. It's not a brand new hot new thing, but it's still kind of newish. People that probably, that might want to see it maybe haven't seen it yet, but it's a Apple series and it's called Silo.
Oh, so good.
And
Did
it's
not expect
about
it
a
to be this good.
it's about this farm that has a big silo full of corn and
Different
there's
silo.
oh no.
A giant thing of corn.
Yeah, it's about corn and no,
That's
it's
about
not.
it. It's
It is
about corn.
absolutely not.
It's not. There is a
It
farm in it, sort of.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But what it is a science fiction series, and I'm a big science fiction nerd, which is why you recommended that I should watch it because I'm such a sci-fi nerd. And
Right.
interestingly, there's books that it's based on. There's a series of popular books. The first book, I remember reading the first story because when I was watching it, I was like, this is kind of familiar, or when you were telling me about it, and then I looked it up and it's like, oh, it is based on this story. It was a book called
Ah.
Wool.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it was really popular, and then there's several of them, and unfortunately I read enough to kind of know a bit of spoilery stuff about the series. I don't want to start off with spoilers, but it's about a bunch of people who live in a bunker situation underground, which is like a really deep silo shaped thing, like a missile silo kind of thing, but
Right.
it's not a missile silo. It's a bigger community type thing.
It's almost like a city underground.
Yeah,
It's like kind of, but it's all this big spiral just goes down, 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 down. And they all
yeah.
kind of live on this spiral in a way. Right.
And they've been there for a very long time, and they have forgotten their past for some reason, and you kind of wonder, how could that happen? Why wouldn't people pass stories down, like how we got here, what happened, why are we underground, why can't we go outside? And they have a huge screen, like a video wall, even though the technology down there seems to be old school technology, there's a few little things that are modern-ish, but there's things like they're not allowed to use radios, they don't have weapons, they don't have elevators. They're required. There's like a book of rules,
the founders.
The
founders wrote these rules for a reason. We'll abide by them. Almost religious, almost culty also.
Yeah.
It's kind of culty.
But limiting, they have a big, like you were saying, it's a spiral and it goes down, down, down. There's like 1,000 floors or something.
Yeah.
But it's stairs that go around this spine down the middle, the core.
Yeah.
And everybody has to walk on these stairs. And at one point, several episodes in, somebody kind of just mentions, the founders prohibited any kind of elevator. So we can't have elevators. We have to walk. Right. And so when somebody's talking about going to see, like if somebody lives up top and then somebody works down below and they're talking about going to see them, they're like, well, we get ready for like a few days travel.
It's like a hike almost.
Yeah.
It's like, but
they
it's the
have to,
walk up that takes so long.
yeah, and they always have to carry
Going back there.
water. And
Yeah,
but it's
so
a
funny.
fascinating case of or situation where you get little by little you get more and more of the story. It's one of those
Yeah.
kind of science fiction stories where you're thrown in at the beginning, you're thrown into this world,
Mhm.
and and you're like, why don't they have a freaking elevator? And then you find out later, and then you're like, why can't they call each other on the telephone or radio
Yeah.
or wire, like
They
some
have to
kind of
send, like,
wire?
a runner. They have these
Yeah,
guys who d like a messenger, and they
couriers.
just
Yeah,
run up and down the stair. I also like too, it's the literal, like, hierarchy of, like, the well
yeah,
offer at the top, and then if they go down, down, down to the dregs, like, where the engineers are, they're like,
yeah.
the kinda laborers. So, as you're going down, it becomes like a hierarchy situation, almost like a caste system, like, so it
Yeah,
goes from upper to lower. Isn't it
that's
funny
where
how
the
that always
garbage
seems to
ends
be
up.
the way?
People throw their garbage in the bin, and it just the chute,
Yeah,
and it just goes down to the lower
just
levels
falls
where people
down.
sort through the garbage. And it's very much the caste system idea where
Yeah,
you have these untouchables down on the
yeah.
in the lower levels. And but you meet these characters. They have some, like, memories, some little echoes of the above ground life. Like, they have a sheriff who wears a badge and a
Mhm.
sheriff's uniform,
Yeah,
and there's things like that, like they call him sheriff and sheriff's deputy. And there's one of the primary controlling functional entities of this world is what they call IT, which I thought was pretty cool, like another
yeah,
holdover. And the IT department, and they handle all of the the data, I guess,
yeah,
the information and filing and keeping up with
yeah.
people and all this kind of stuff. And the cast is really interesting. There's a few recognizable people. Tim Robbins is in
Right.
it as the head of IT, and he goes through some changes in the story, but he
Yeah.
starts off being a regular jackass, which you kind of recognize if you've ever had a job with a person like that. It's like,
With anyone from IT. Sorry.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was it.
I didn't want to say too much, but the it's just got it's got I love world building. I love when a show puts you in a world and you gradually believe it. It's not there's no big gaping plot holes and horrible, like, why don't they just things,
Yeah, there's
this
reasons.
you do say that a few times while you're watching it. Why don't they just do this? But then you realize why, and
Yeah.
you find out why later. And so anyway, the story is about these people, like a huge community of people who live underground, and they have this big video wall in their cafeteria that shows the outside world, which is like this
Mhm.
dead wasteland of rocky
Yeah,
desert with a dead tree
yeah.
and a few dead people laying out there.
And it
And
also has the stairway, like, that's the only exit to the silo, and so you can see a little bit, like, where the stairway is, they come
yeah,
out
it's
where
like
you
a
can go
door that
out to the
opens
outside,
up
but it
and a
seems
person
like
walks.
yeah, but it seems like the air is poisoned 'cause anyone who goes out there falls down dead pretty much. I mean, after a
Even
few
though they're
minutes, but
wearing a they put
exactly.
like one of the rules in their rule book is that if anyone ever says, I want to go outside, if
Yes.
you make that statement, then
Yeah.
they have to let you have that. They
And
have
it's
to let,
irreversible. Like, once
and
you
you
say
can't,
it, you can't take it
yeah.
back. You gotta go. You're out. Bye.
So
Like,
they
yeah,
lock you up,
really
and
creepy.
then they do this ceremony thing. They have a kind of a
Yeah.
ceremonial thing where they put the
Mm.
atmosphere suit on you, and they tape up the suit, and then you walk up this ramp, and it's this very intense kind of thing. Because and then when you get out there, they give you this special thing where the title of the book is Wool, and so
Mhm.
they give you this special little cloth, and you're like, why
Yeah.
is such a ceremonious presence to this piece of cloth? They put it in a little bag on your belt, and
Yep.
when you get out there, you're supposed to wipe off the
Clean the
lens.
camera. It's the only
It's
person people going out. They gotta clean
and
that camera.
everybody in the cafeteria is watching the screen, which is all
Like, "What's gonna
dirty,
happen?"
and they wipe it off, and everybody's cheering like, "Yay, we can see
Yay.
clear now." And people are like, when they do that, they're always saying, "I'm not gonna clean and they don't know, they also don't have cameras down there.
Yeah.
One interesting thing about the production design is anytime you see pictures on the walls of
Mhm.
people, they're drawings or paintings, and
Yeah.
there's a character who does drawings of
Yeah.
people, and I thought that was really interesting. It's like, why would they outlaw cameras?
Mhm.
And you gradually get the answer, but
Yeah. Well, they call
the
them artifacts, like anything from the past,
right,
and they don't even know what some of these things are. Like they found a
yeah,
Pez dispenser. It's a big
yeah,
deal. Like, what is this? What is it for? Like trying to figure out what this mechanical thing is. So there's a collection, and it's considered illegal to keep it, which because they don't
right.
want people using it, I guess. So there's the black market who kind of gets the artifact, and either they're kind of selling them or doing whatever. And there's also the people trying to keep the artifacts in the upper echelon so they can control everyone basically. So there's
But
that.
watches are okay for some reason. Like some people have old watches, and that's a kind of a commodity that they just sort of let it pass, I think.
Well, kind of, because I gotta go, "Is that an artifact?" 'Cause no,
Yeah.
I was given special permission to wear this
Right.
watch. Like, remember the guy's watch? Like, it was sorta
Yeah.
like, sometimes you can get by, but it
Right.
can't really work. Like, it's a broken watch that she's wearing. It's like a sorta artifact from her boyfriend? So she's like,
Right.
Rebecca Ferguson, who is amazing in this. Love, love
I
her.
was
Oh
gonna
my god,
bring her up.
so
She's
good,
pretty fantastic in this. Like
so good.
a real a real presence she's got. She's
Yeah,
like somebody that's really formidable and kind of intimidating, but she's got a lot of presence to her
mhm,
character. And it's
yeah,
a weird character. It's a weird situation to be in. I mean, when you get I've talked to actors about things like this, where you get a job on a show where the situation is really unusual. Um, it's not nobody in the show is playing a normal person. In other words, they're playing a
right,
person
right,
who's lived their whole life underground. And what does that bring out in a person's character? And how does a
mhm,
person? I mean, you have to address that as an actor. And
mhm,
everybody seems to have addressed that. It seems like there was a lot of discussion in the
yeah,
pre-production and concept meetings where this is how this is how a person might act if they lived their entire life underground, and how they would think about things like what how would you hold a Pez dispenser? Everybody knows how to hold one. You do this and the candy comes
yeah.
out. But if you didn't know what it was, you would be like
What goes in here? What is this? Yeah,
how would you look at it? You wouldn't
yeah,
hold it like you normally. There little
yeah,
things like that
yeah.
that I loved about the show. They find they find a camera at one point, and they're sort of looking at it. They're like what?
What does this
I
do?
don't know
What
what
this
it
is?
is.
Yeah,
And I love that kind of thing where with the world building, and and when that happens in the show, you realize, wow, this is a radically different world that they're living in.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there's a mystery underneath it. There's a huge mystery about people who go outside, and the whole idea of outside, and the whole idea of who are the builders, who are the creators of this space,
Mhm,
and why did they create it, and how were they able to create such like a gigantic underground um
mhm.
bunker. If there was like a nuclear war or something, you wouldn't have time or resources to build it. You would have to
Right,
start something like that like 100 years before the cataclysm, whatever it
yeah.
was. And nothing is, they don't ever say nuclear war. They don't ever say war. They don't ever,
Nobody knows. They just don't know. There's like a steam that kinda runs the whole thing. They don't know where the steam comes from. Like, we don't
yeah,
know where it comes from. It comes from underground. We don't know.
I
So
love that.
nobody's really sure why, how things work or how they work. There's, the conspiracy theorists who like, "What we're seeing on the screen isn't real," and,
Yeah.
there's all these, like, and I love that too because you're getting this microcosm of society and they all have their ideas. Like, we have the
Yeah.
politicians, we have the social structure, we have, the hierarchy, we have, and I love that idea of taking that and making it really small and then having this really hardcore mystery behind it. Like, can you go outside? Why can't we go outside? What happened? Who are these people? Who are the founders? Who made these
And
rules? Like, I love
just
that idea.
on a basic level, what is outside?
What is it?
They don't
No.
even know. They don't have
You
a
only
memory
see
of
this
it.
little bit. That's all you see. Like you said, that hillside with a scraggly tree and a few dead bodies for the sad people who decided they
And
wanted to go outside.
they don't even have a cultural memory of outside. They don't know
No.
what was out there, because for some reason they all seem to have a weird, dead zone in their past, and all of their data at one point, there was a revolution at one point and a lot of data was destroyed. But there's an interesting dead zone kind of a thing in the story so far that does eventually get answered as to why are there no the history of storytelling, the passing down of stories. Why doesn't anybody have any kind of cultural memory of the old ways? All they know is the silo and what they see on that screen. And so when they find certain artifacts, there's from here, I don't want to spoil, I'm not going to do spoilers, but I'm going to do a little bit of a spoiler from here down. Just
don't do
a
too
little
much.
tiny bit of a spoiler.
Don't do it. Do we need to do it?
Now we have to. No, just one little tiny thing I want to say. I won't say what it is, but they find an artifact that makes people think there is an outside world. Like they didn't know before that there was even an old world out there. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to get too spoilery.
We don't need to explain it. Let people. We're trying to get people to watch it. So yeah, that's all you need to know. It's like the mystery of what happened, where they came from, who made it, what's going on.
There's a few moments in the show where things happen and you're like, that was cool. That was a cool reveal, because
really smart.
I had this lingering question in my mind, and then suddenly something happens and it's like, oh, okay, that's why. Exactly. So it's one of those shows that's very smart. It's science fiction all the way. It's definitely science fiction in the true sense of the word. It's not,
I mean, apocalyptic science fiction too, because you feel like something big has happened and it becomes very primitive all of a sudden. So I like that too.
Yeah, they live in a kind of primitive world, and they recycle everything. And one thing I want to bring up, a huge bring up here is, and it's the worlds that I work in. I work in movies and TV shows, and I work in the art department. I want to talk about the production design, which is spectacular in this. You really feel like this is a real place. It's got this kind of industrial, mid-century modern. Right. There are clues in the production design about when it was built, which is interesting. And I know that was discussed. It was like when the silo was built, this is the style of furniture and desks and things like that, I think. But it does have this kind of ugly hospital looking vibe to the hallways and things, like the bad Soviet era architecture. If you ever saw the show Chernobyl or anything, or that a TV series or a show that takes place in Soviet Russia or Soviet Poland or something like that, where everybody is kind of living in these sort of darkened, old, everything is kind of cracked and past its prime. Their apartments look lived in, but not just by the person living there. It looks like it's been lived in by 12 generations of people.
Is this the Chernobyl showrunner?
Yeah, I think it was the
I think
so. Yeah, it was somebody involved in Chernobyl was involved in this show, I believe. Yeah, I should know that, but yeah, it is. I'm happy that you recommended that for me to watch, because it was like that's the kind of thing I just love. I love science fiction. I love world building. I love good production design. I love seeing how actors deal with unusual an unusual challenge, because as an actor, you have to adjust the way you walk, even in some cases, depending on the situation that you're portraying. And everybody in here was very well briefed, I think, and they all seem like people who have never seen the outside world and don't know what this weird artifact is. And when they talk about it, they don't say it in a way that's too expository. You know what I mean? They just sort of say, I don't know what that is. But anyway, So it's got a depth of realism to it that I really liked.
Yeah. And also is something to mention too is that this is based on a series of books and there's
Yeah.
9. And I think this series, this first season was only half of the first book. So there's a
Yeah.
lot to go. So I can't
It's
even imagine
basically
like
a
what is
short
gonna
story.
happen. Oh
There's a short
no.
story that the books were the
So
first
good.
book was compiled from some short stories. I think they put the stories together and edited and created a book, and then there's
And they wrote
sequels.
8 more.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I read them a while back, and I sadly about halfway through the series, I was like, oh yeah, I think I remember. But luckily, I don't have the best memory in the world, and I read so much that sometimes I get things mixed up in my mind when I remember. So I was like, is this the one where, so luckily I have a bad memory. I'm able to watch it without it being too spoiled.
This is actually Graham Yost is the showrunner and he did Justified.
Justified. Okay.
The one
But
I'm thinking of did it was the Chernobyl showrunner did Last of Us.
Last of Us, that's right.
That's what it
Okay.
was. So that's a
Which
rewrite.
also had a dark look
Yeah.
and excellent world building.
Yes, it did. All right.
Yeah, and
There's our 2 shows. 2 shows, great, and both worth watching. Really, you can go around either of these dates. They're both very nice.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
definitely check out Silo and Fargo season 5.
Yeah, sounds like good stuff. I'm gonna
Good
look
stuff.
into watching Fargo.
Definitely watch it. It's fun.
You always recommend good stuff, so
It's not quite as in-depth, as intense as Silo, but it's a really fun watch.
okay, then I won't watch it. I won't bother.
No, watch it. All right, let us know in the comments if you've watched these. Did you like them? Do you have any other streaming suggestions that we could talk about?
Yeah, if you got other cool sci-fi shows you think I ought to watch, since I'm such a sci-fi nerd, let me know in the comments. And
Bye.
bye, everybody.